Yeah, this goes for everybody in life. It's your self-image. So
Hmm.
how you see yourself. That's all it comes down to. If you truly believe that you are going to be an NBA player and you can truly see yourself as an NBA player, then you just keep doing what you're doing and you're going to be there. But most people don't believe in themselves. When I'm not saying you have to say you're going to be an NBA player, but even if you want to score 15 a game on varsity, you have to see yourself as somebody that can do that. And it takes work, right? It doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't just happen like in your head, but that's where it starts, right? That's the first mental skill is you have to be able to see a better version of yourself. And sometimes you have to start with just meeting them where they're at. And maybe they're like really down in the dumps and like just don't feel any hope for getting better. And you just say like, ask a few questions, whatever, to get them to see the next version. They don't have to see all the way over here or up.
You are listening to the Bridging Impact Podcast, transforming leaders on and off the court with host Coach Furtado. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. Our guest of the day is Tyler Matthews. Tyler is an NBA skills/performance trainer and the founder of FastFenom Basketball Training and the host of the 90% Mental podcast. Tyler started training basketball players locally in Central Florida when he was 18 years old out of driveways, backyards, parks, rec centers, wherever he can find. In 2017, Tyler landed a job in Michigan working alongside one of the highest regarded basketball trainers in the industry while training NBA players to young kids. After living and working in Michigan for just under a year, Tyler decided to move back to Florida where he opened FastFenom facility in Viera, Florida. So welcome to the show, Tyler.
Hey, thank you, Coach. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to get this thing going. That was one of the best introductions I've ever had, so appreciate that.
Yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's get to it. So before we kind of talk about you becoming a trainer and a coach and a business owner, I'd love for you to just share your experience about how basketball made an impact on your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's like one of the things that's most near and dear to my heart, I guess, is the impact that just playing the game and training for the game, how that's translated into my adult career. And really more than ever now, I think maybe because we went through COVID a few years ago and that stuff, and there's just a lot of kids out there that didn't play sports and maybe are dealing with maybe just things that they're not as confident, right, as they could be, and maybe kids that didn't ever play sports. I think it's the best teacher for life. It's the best metaphor for life. You learn to fail, right? So if you never played sports and then you get into business, you start your own business and you get a little bit of failure, a lot of people quit, right? Or relationships, like if you get in a marriage and things get hard and you have a little bump in the road, people get a divorce, right? Stuff like that. I think if you play sports and you just get used to taking hits and losses and stuff like that, you're just more tolerant of it. So I love basketball. I love sports, and I think it's the best metaphor for life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I think I really love what you all are doing. You talk about personal development through basketball, and we talk about leadership development through basketball to prepare our young athletes to be leaders beyond the game, right? Because as me and you both know, right, most of us hang up our shoes after high school. A lot of people even sooner than that. So if we can prepare them through the game of basketball, we're going to end up having better people for our communities going forward. And with that, what are some of the like specific life lessons and any moments of failure that you specifically learned when you were a player?
The biggest thing is setting goals. So having a goal or a mission to me is the number one thing that separates the people that get to where they want to go and the people that kind of just cruise through life, right? So like one of the first questions I ask everybody is, what's your goal or what's your mission? Whether it's a young 5-year old or an NBA player, I want to know, what are you trying to do, right? And when I ask that question, a lot of people give me a vague answer, like I want to help people or I want to be the best I can be. And that stuff is great. But in my opinion, it has to be definitive. Like you have to know that you reached your goal or that you reached your mission or not, right? And it's okay to set a goal and then fail, right? And then that teaches you, okay, I either have to work harder towards that goal or I have to maybe be more realistic with where I'm setting my current mission. And then maybe that mission that I had is a mission for me after I accomplish a few of these smaller missions that will lead me to my big mission.
Right, setting those micro goals to continue to get you to get going. And I think, as someone that's kind of transitioned from being an athlete to a trainer, how do you help athletes specify their goals? Because I have a similar experience. I'm very big on goal setting, but I face the same challenges you have sometimes, where it's just like it's so simple or it's so vague that I'm trying to learn how to push that boundary to get them to specify that goal more and help them set up micro goals as well.
Yep. So our process for it is saying it as a I will statement, or if you're doing something as a team, like if your dad or your parents are involved in your basketball journey, saying it as a we will statement. So one of the kids I work with, I got him when, well, really, I don't even work with him anymore. I only trained him a few times, but I could tell he's on a mission. Because I asked him what's his goal, and he said, I want to be ranked #1 in the country, which is like, that's, you either did it or you didn't do it. And his dad is really into it. So, anyways, it's saying it as an I will statement. And then what I like to do is say it as an I will statement, have a date so that you know when it's happening by, and then have a reason because. And I stole this from a guy named Donald Miller, who has like business growth books and stuff like that, but it translates perfectly to basketball players. It's having an I will, and then either it's make my varsity team or average 10 points a game by, and then if you're looking for it for next season, you put the season end date, and then because, and then it has to be something that when you wake up, you're going to be driven towards that, because it's like, because I have a little brother who needs that positive influence in his life, or because I don't want to let my parents out, whatever it is, because and so that, and then number two is having a goal card, so like a physical index card where you write those I will statements. And so we teach our players not to just have goals for basketball, but for life. So I will get straight A's. I will tell my mom I love her every day. These things that you're not doing, turn your goals into habits, write it on an index card, and treat that card like it's your phone. Everybody carries this around with them all day, and they're distracted, right? I got this from a guy named Myron Golden. He puts YouTube videos, but he calls it the hypnotic distraction device, right? Because it's just distracting people. Instead, have your goals top of mind and keep that like in front of you, and just look at it when you wake up. And everything you do, if it's not helping one of these 5 things, don't do it.
Yeah, prioritizing is such an important thing, especially for young teenagers to learn, right? They're kind of in a stage of their life where they're very influenced by their peers, and a lot of times their peers are not necessarily going to have goals. So creating an environment where setting goals is the norm, right? And it's part of the culture is a really important and powerful way. And I think I like the because statement, because that's like finding that why, right? Sometimes people will have a goal, but if you forget the why you want that goal, right? When you're tired at 7 a.m. and you don't want to wake up to, go to your workout, right? You're probably not going to go to your workout if you don't have that strong why. So when you're working with them on this, do you give athletes like homework on how they're going to continue to develop that on their own? Is it only at sessions? How do you structure that?
Yeah, the structure is just, we onboard them when they come into the program. We let them know the expectations, and then we give them all the resources that they're going to need. And then it's our job to hold them accountable, and it's their job to use us as a resource. And so I'm big on quotes. I think I've already thrown out like 2 or 3 within this podcast interview, but Tony Robbins has one where he says, everybody has the resources, but not everybody has the resourcefulness to use the resources that they have. And so it's easy to say, I don't have this, or I couldn't do this because of this. But those are all just excuses. At the end of the day, you either did it or you didn't do it. And so we look to get kids to just try to eliminate those excuses and limiting beliefs around why they can't do what they're looking to do. And then of course they're going to come through, they're going to have hurdles and obstacles and bumps in the road. And so that's what we're there for, is just to guide them along the way, and let them know, hey, this is normal, right? You're going through a little rough patch. This is normal. Just keep pushing, just keep showing up daily. And every day is not made to be a good day. I don't look to be happy every day, because if I'm happy every day, then I'm never happy. It just becomes my stagnant. So you're going to have 33% of your days where you're happy, 33% where you're average, and then 33% when you're sad. And as you get better at life, that continuum will move, and your happy days will get a little happier, and your sad days won't be as sad as they used to be, but you're still going to have a fluctuation in your emotions, and it's being able to control that.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'd love to kind of go there in terms of emotional control because that's such a big thing, on the basketball court is right being able to handle emotions when you're in competition, right? When you're, obviously you're whether you're upset, right, or you're too high, right? Just making sure that you manage those. So, how do you teach, emotional intelligence to your athletes?
That is a great question. So we have like certain cues that we'll give them if we see them kind of getting down on themselves. And then how we teach it, I think, is based upon the player and what we see, right? Because like for example, I just got a kid like a month ago and he's a young kid, he's 9 years old, but every single time he scores, he's doing this. He's flexing and he's like jumping up and down. And that's great, right? He sees NBA players maybe celebrating and stuff, but what he doesn't realize is how that can impact the whole game and how eventually he may not be able to do that every single time, and it's just not a good habit to have, right? So just asking questions that get them to realize and come up with their own answer of if that's who they want to be and if that's what they think is going to get them to go the farthest. So like, hey, Johnny, like if you were the one getting scored on every time, would you want to be flexed on, or would you want to have them be more of a good sport, stuff like that. And he's like, oh, I would want to be a good sport. And it's like, or hey, if you flex every time, like I don't know, just little questions that get them to come up with their own answer.
Yeah, so just continuing to ask those questions and making sure that they are coming up with the answers. It's not all about spoon feeding them the answers. And so just actually at the end of the day, we are coaches, we are guides, we are teachers and mentors of life, right? So how can we help ask and guide them to their own answers? And I think one of the challenging parts of being a coach is right, like being okay with them making mistakes and encouraging them to kind of figure it out and be problem solvers, because I know as coaches, like, it can be really easy for us to continue to give them answers. I feel like you should have done this every single place, this stop every single rep, right? So how do you make sure, even in your drill designs or how you structure your trainings, how do you make sure that you are encouraging them to become their own problem solvers?
Yeah, that is probably one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my training career, is that I was the drill sergeant, and I was like, hey, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, ready, go. And then if they're not doing it that way, it's like, hey, you're doing it wrong, here's how you need to do it, right? And now I've kind of just found more of like a horizontal approach, I guess you could call it, where instead of it being like coach up here and then players down here, it's more like, hey, yes, you still have to be respectful and I'm still leading the session, but we're side by side and we're going to work together towards this. So if there's days where you come in and you're not feeling good, let me know, right? And if there's days where you're feeling really good and you want to push, let me know. And if just those sorts of things, where just building that relationship where they trust me as their guide, and they trust that I know what's best for them and that I wouldn't steer them in the wrong direction. So how about you? Do you have anything that like stands out as far as what you guys do in getting players to be able to coach themselves?
Yeah, I think a big thing is asking questions. I'm big on in terms of like small sided games and encouraging them to kind of go into it and be problem solvers. We also do classroom sessions, so that's a big place where they all bring their journals, and so they're writing down notes, right? They're setting goals for themselves, right, for their games on a weekend, and just making sure that a big thing is developing that trust. And so I was talking to my girls team yesterday, and so I'm running some club basketball, and I'm talking to them about how we can continue to make that experience great for them. I think one of the things that they enjoy about this experience versus playing maybe for their high school teams or playing for other coaches is they were like, we feel like yes, you get upset at us through mistakes, but you actually teach us, right, versus just berating. And so I
Yeah.
think really one of the things is, like, a couple podcasts ago I had Jamie Beckler on, and Jamie's a leadership coach, and was kind of talking about how, yes, as coaches, it's our job to correct. We can't just be Pollyanna and be positive all the time, pour in relationships. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we celebrate when they do something well. So when they do solve a problem, that's building trust that, hey, we
Yes.
see you, and having those positive interactions, right? Because I think sometimes as coaches and trainers, like, yeah, you did what you're expected to do. Good job. right? And we don't actually praise that player, and they're only getting correcting, which then ends up taking out that trust from the piggy bank.
1,000,000%. That was gold right there. I listen to a lot of like business marketing stuff, but they in business leadership and in sports, it's all leadership, right? And one of the things that they talk about is like positive reinforcing behaviors versus negative, and negative works good in the short term, so like, hey, you did that wrong, can get people to correct something in the short term, but positive is the best for long term, and like celebrating wins and stuff like that. And I think it's honestly, I probably do it myself, and I think it's maybe one of the biggest things in the coaching industry is like it's easy to only point out the things that are going wrong, and that when things go right just expect it. But by celebrating those wins and getting excited, I think that's huge.
So personally, as a business owner, how do you make sure that you include celebrations in your own business? Because I know sometimes, especially for me, it's like I always look to the next thing, right? Or I always kind of, I don't want to say criticize, but I look to my areas of weakness, like, oh, I need to get better at enrollment here. I need to get better at sales, marketing, XYZ.
Yep. So that's a great question. I still struggle with it too. I think it's just the nature of being an entrepreneur and like always wanting more, but I have gotten better with it recently, I think, by being able to look back on my previous goals and missions. And so like
Hmm.
I keep a goal card, and I looked at mine from 2021, and my goal was just to make $100,000 with our business. And at the time that was like, I was looking at the number, and I remember how I felt like writing it down. I almost felt like a fraud writing down that we were going to do $100,000 in revenue through basketball training. And now we're way beyond that. And it's just like being able to look back on like, wow, I can't believe at one point I thought this. And so I think that's a way to celebrate wins, and just I guess having time, setting time aside to celebrate wins, like whether it's a vacation after the end of a busy summer, or after you hit a certain revenue mark, or whatever it is. So I think it's something I'm working on, right? But it's fun.
Yeah, it's a constant work in progress, and that's part of the reason I feel like we're in it is because it is so challenging, and that's our brain is like kind of looking to level up each time.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think we want to recognize how far we've come. And as someone that is in your shoes right now from your 2021 self, what advice would you give to your 2021 self? And to help you not necessarily get there faster, but just almost, I guess what advice would you give? Would it be patience? Would it be, focus on marketing in terms of growing your business?
Oh, in terms of growing the business, yeah, marketing and sales. I would focus on those two things. It's great to focus on the training, and now we're actually like it's a constant. I call it the OODA loop, and I got that. It's a military term. It stands for like orient, or observe, orient, decide, and then act. Right, and so it's a constant OODA loop. So it's not like, hey, we fixed this one thing, and then now let's just move on, and we never have to look at that thing again. It's like we observe what's happening, we orient, like gather all that information, make a decision, and then we act on it. And then now we have a feedback loop of whether it worked or not. And then we go back to the drawing board, and we just keep that going. And so on the marketing and sales side, that's where we struggled a lot, as far in the early days. Like, I mean, to be honest, now that we're having this conversation, like I said, I struggled on the training side, like with just being a not a dictator, but just like not having that horizontal relationship with the players. So we've changed a lot, right, since those early days. But the the marketing and the sales is definitely like you could be the best trainer in the world, but if you're charging $50 a session, and it's going to take you forever to get to whatever your revenue goals are. So, and if nobody knows who you are, nobody's going to be able to even pay you money. So you have to at some point, and I suggest for most trainers doing this like with after 3 months of training or less, like within your first 1 to 3 months of training, you should really put a big focus on getting sales processes in place and having marketing processes where you know that, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z activities, it's going to result in 100 leads a month. Or if I spend $1,000 on Facebook, it's going to result in 100 leads a month. And then taking those leads and having a clear process of how to convert them into a customer, and then doing a good job on the back end. And this is kind of where we're at right now, is And like I said, we're always bouncing back and forth between let's make the sales better, let's make the marketing better, let's make the product better. But where we're currently at is we're getting the product as far as the customer experience better. So not necessarily the on court training, but the whole program from the time a parent reaches out all the way down to like when they leave our program for the last time, like when they say, hey, I'm never going to train here again, because they either go off to like get a job or like they're just not playing basketball anymore, or they become one of our trainers. We want to have that process pretty much choreographed, and that's what we're working on right now. So I know I went on a little bit of tangent there, but my advice would be, if you're not doing the revenue numbers that you want to be doing, put all your focus on marketing and sales. And then once you hit those revenue goals that you want, then maybe put your focus on something else. And then you'll realize you want to do a little bit more money, and then you just keep going back.
Got you. So it's a continuous cycle and loop. And so, just real quick, can you share some of those systems and processes that, kind of help, kind of the funnel and help that circle come in? Because I know that's something I'm working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as like any specific processes, or do you want me to just give the whole kind of overview?
So I'm thinking specifically on, like right now, obviously we met because I watched your Facebook ads video. I'm trying to work on my marketing. However, I also want to work on my process. I do like Zoom or Google Meets calls, and then I'm just trying to dial in my onboarding process and how I filter in and make sure I draw expectations and make it as seamless, as simple as possible for parents.
Absolutely. So you just said a key word right there, which is expectation. So I think a lot of trainers don't set expectations, and then it ends up burning them on the back end, because then there's this resentment between either the client and the coach, or the coach and the client. And so setting clear expectations and then meeting those expectations and just constantly doing that is huge. And so like our process is, it's pretty simple. Like we'll have players want to join the program. So we do marketing, right? We'll put out Facebook ads. We'll put out like physical what do you call those, like yard signs, right, and stuff like that. So we get a lot of leads every month, and then we have a process where they contact us or fill out a form, and then we contact them. Or they're when they fill out the form, they have the option to schedule a call. So some people will schedule a call with us, and if not, then we'll reach out and either just call them, or we'll send them a text to schedule a call. And then everything is driven to a phone call. We just talk over the phone. We don't do Zoom, just because we've found that a lot of parents are just on the go and they just want to have a quick conversation. And so we'll have a quick conversation with them, ask about their current state, their desired state, what's holding them back from getting there, those sorts of things. And then we bring them in for an evaluate. If they sound like a good fit over the phone, like if they don't sound like we're going to be able to help them, or like we think that they're just not serious about this, then we're just going to let them know, hey, we think you should go play in a league right now, or maybe do this. But if they sound somewhat like a good fit, we're going to invite them to an evaluation session. From the evaluation session, we're looking for, the main things are like attitude, ability to like coachability, like how hard they're willing to work, stuff like that. And then if they're a good fit after that evaluation session, then we have another call with the parent. So there's times where we'll do it at the gym, but most of the time we have a session right after. And so we'll just have a call with the parent. And then the next day, like we'll tell them right at the gym, like, hey, does tomorrow at 10 a.m. work for you? Or we'll, if we're really busy, we'll say, hey, it depends, right? Like, so and I kind of need to look at this now that I'm saying it out loud. I don't know what our exact way of doing this, because I'm not the one doing it myself anymore. I'm kind of overseeing this stuff, but we have a call with the parent the next day, and then talk to them about what we see best. They join the program, and as they're joining the program, or like we give them our recommendation, they let us know if they want to do it. And as they're letting us know if they want to do it, we're letting them know, okay, cool, before we get you fully committed, here's our onboarding process, here's our expectations. Is all of this okay? Do you agree to it? Once they agree, then boom, they send the payment over, and then we just try to wow them from the jump and just make it a great experience. And we've found that if we do like a really good job in the first 4 weeks with a client, like if we just really personalize the experience to them, check in on them, make sure they're doing good for the first 4 weeks, that the likelihood that they stay for years goes way up. And so that's where we put majority of our focus.
Got you. And that makes a ton of sense. And that's kind of my goal and aim. And so can you talk about when it was just kind of you at the beginning, and, can you talk about how when the importance of focusing on the long term versus like, I don't want to say, for lack of a better term, like quick cash grab, and like trying to shorten your process just to get people in, right? Because it feels like when you're just starting out, you just want people, but you also have to work on the systems and the processes in place for the long run.
Absolutely. I made that mistake. So I wanted money and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever it takes. And you end up giving huge discounts, or you end up allowing kids into sessions that they shouldn't be in or that you don't want them in. So yeah, it's tough when you're on your own. And I don't want to say it's tough. I mean, it's one of the fun parts, right? Like you're a solopreneur and you're wearing all the hats, but I think that is when it's even more important to set expectations, because it is just you, and your time is very like it's the most like valuable resource that we have. And so if you're going to be spending your time talking to parents or training the kids or having any type of relationship with them, you want to make sure that it's going to work out long term and not just for this one program.
I got you. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so, with that, I think, what are some of the things that you feel like your program offers that is different, right, than other basketball training programs? And you kind of touched about it a little bit, talking about the goal setting and just making sure it's personal development. And it sounds like we're in alignment with preparing our young athletes to succeed beyond the game.
Yeah, I think the thing that separates us, I don't think there is a thing that separates us. I think it's there's a quote like death by a thousand cuts. Like a lot of businesses don't fail necessarily because of one reason. They fail because of all these little things that stacked up. And the same reason for why businesses succeed, it's not like just one thing. It's all these little things that are done that equate to being different than another company, right? So like it I don't think it's one thing. I think like our sales process is better than most. Our marketing is better than most. Our how much we care about making sure that they get results, asking them for a referral, like all these little things just add up to them trusting us and knowing that we're going to get them to where they want to go a lot more than other people.
I got you. It's like the little plus ones, plus one, and then it
Yep.
then it compounds and it adds up over time, and that makes a ton of sense. And so, can you talk about? I think this is one of the things that I feel like a lot of young trainers and or new. I don't necessarily say young, but newer trainers and newer coaches. They think I don't want to focus on marketing sales. That's not my thing. Like I just want to do word of mouth and da 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 da. But one of the things that I've been thinking about, and maybe you've been thinking about as well, or what you were thinking about, is like if I want to, I see the impact we are having with the kids we have now, and if I don't have enough kids, then I can't have this service and can't impact kids. So it's like my responsibility to do the marketing and sales, so I can have that impact on kids. If I keep
Mhm.
doing that, I have to make sure that the program is sustainable, right, in the long run.
Yep. Yeah. So that's 90% mental, right? Like a lot of trainers just have limiting beliefs around, oh, if I'm a good trainer, I'm not going to market myself, or I don't have to do all that other stuff. I'm just going to train and I'm going to build my business off word of mouth. And if people want to train with me, they'll hear about me and all this stuff, right? And I had that mindset starting off, and I just think that is I think that's the most selfish mindset you could have, because if you had the cure to cancer or any disease we want to call it, right? And we literally do have the cure to. Uh-oh, are you there? Yep, you're. The video's cutting out a little bit, but I can see you're still there. So trainers don't realize what kids could be doing if they're not training with them. And I think when you do this long enough and you talk to enough kids and enough parents and you realize the problems that some of them are having, then you start to understand what you're doing is needed and the marketplace needs it, and they're not going to get it if you don't say something about it and if you don't put yourself out there. And so if you believe in what you do, which you should, I'm telling any basketball trainer or any sports trainer that listens to this, like there's parents paying thousands, like multiple 15,000s plus, that for therapy and just these nightmare things that are going on in their kid's life that you could potentially save them from. Just having a positive role model, having somewhere for them to go. Like it's not just basketball, it's bigger than you, it's bigger than the kid, it's bigger than the parent. Like like it impacts the world. So you if you believe in what you have, put yourself out there. And if you don't, go work for a business that's willing to put themselves out there. Come work for us at FastFenom.
Yeah, there you go. I love it.
Yep.
I think that's really important, and that's what I'm starting to connect. Right, it's almost selfish for me not to put it out there, not to be willing to get out of my comfort zone to make these certain calls or to go
Yep.
do
Yep.
outreach.
Yep. And sorry to cut you off, but exactly what you just said right there, comfort zone, right? We teach players, hey, if you want to get better, you got to push yourself. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to try this new thing. You got to be willing to take this shot that you're not used to taking, or try this drill, whatever, push your body a little bit harder. You got to practice what you preach, right? If you want them to grow, you got to grow. I don't
Exactly.
mean you. I mean everybody out there that's listening to this.
Yeah. Exactly. No, 100%. No, for sure. And I think one of the coolest things has been, like I've been in business for like a year and a half now. And
Mhm.
last summer, like everyone wants to be in a gym. Well, like I'm here in West Los Angeles, and finding a gym is a nightmare. And I didn't really have enough kids. So last summer I ran 5 camps outdoors, like at a public park, with 6 to 8 kids. And so most of those kids are still with me, and got to see kind of the evolution of us now being in a gym, and now we've grown to 36 kids. And
Love
that's
it.
also an opportunity to be an inspiration for them, right? When we get to grow the business with them, they get to be a part of the journey. That's also them being a part of an environment and seeing the growth, right? Seeing role models right in front of their eyes.
Yep, yep, and they need that. Like I promise, there's so many kids that don't have a hero. They don't, or they don't have. We don't even necessarily need to be their hero. They, to me, they're their own hero, but they need a guide, right? Every hero needs a guide that helps them get to hero status, right? And having somebody to look up to and that sort of thing is just like, yeah, everybody has the hypnotic distraction device to look up to people, but having that real like community in-person engagement, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. Especially, I feel like it's even more important. And I have had, kind of going back to your way earlier point talking about COVID, like I have had quite a few conversations with parents that have talked about how COVID has really messed their kid up with socialization and just their confidence, and even their love for basketball. A lot of it dropped like during that time period. So, just getting them to kind of re-spark that love for physical activity through sport, through
Oh
connection.
yeah.
It's so important.
Yep, it is. It's major. Like I believe what we do is one of the most valuable things out there. And of course, I'm in it, so I'm going to say that. But I think a lot of trainers out there undervalue what they do, and they overvalue maybe other things. And I believe you need to value what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe they overvalue the crossover on the cone, but undervalue the power of their mentorship and just
Yeah.
how much they can really guide these young people into being their most successful selves. And I think that's really what it's all about. And so, as you continue to grow, what kind of I know we've talked about the advice and stuff, and I know you have the podcast 90% mental. What kind of mental skills would you encourage young coaches and young leaders, whether they are in the sport of basketball or sport of baseball? But I feel like it's all of this is applicable, right? Which is why I like your podcast. You talk about basketball leadership or basketball leadership life. I might be messing it up a little bit, or like the mental game. What mental aspects of the game of life do young trainers and young coaches need to adopt?
Yeah, this goes for everybody in life. It's your self-image. So
Hmm.
how you see yourself. That's all it comes down to. If you truly believe that you are going to be an NBA player and you can truly see yourself as an NBA player, then you just keep doing what you're doing and you're going to be there. But most people don't believe in themselves. When I'm not saying you have to say you're going to be an NBA player, but even if you want to score 15 a game on varsity, you have to see yourself as somebody that can do that. And until and it takes work, right? It doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't just happen like in your head, but that's where it starts, right? That's the first mental skill is you have to be able to see a better version of yourself. And sometimes you have to start with just meeting them where they're at. And maybe they're like really down in the dumps and like just don't feel any hope for getting better. And you just say like, ask a few questions, whatever, to get them to see the next version. They don't have to see all the way over here or up here, but if they can, if we can get them to see that they can be a little bit better, and then we make the next one a little bit further from that and get them there. And but again, I can see all the potential in a trainer or in a player or whatever, but it comes down to the self-image. They have to see it for themselves.
Yeah, you have to inspire it in them, and then they have to take responsibility for themselves to create that. And so, do you go through, certain, I guess, what tactical strategies would that be for someone, that comes in, like tangible ways to really help develop that self-image and confidence?
Writing down what you will do and then doing it. So if you say you will make the varsity team next year, you write it down now and you truly see yourself making the varsity team next year or whatever, right? I keep using that as an example, but
Yeah.
it could be making $1 million in your business or whatever the version of yourself that you want to see yourself as, writing it as an I will statement and then coming up with an action plan that is like almost like just, it would be crazy for you to not get to that point and then just obviously executing that action plan and
Yeah, the action
getting
plan is huge. What are those little micro goals? What's the process that's going to get there, right? That's the outcome, but you have to put in the work and the time to get where you want to go. So that makes a ton
yeah
of sense.
yeah
And I think that's really inspiring. So, with that being said, where can people, find and connect with you and listen to your podcast, or if they're in Florida, they want to get some training, where can they reach out to you?
yeah absolutely. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, they can go to fastphenom.com. And if they want to reach out, like if they want to train with us in Florida, fastphenom.com, and then just fill out the form, we'll reach out to you. Or you can email me personally, Tyler, which is Tyler at fastphenom.com. And then we're Fast Phenom Training on all the social platforms. Yep, pretty much.
I appreciate you dropping so much wisdom today, helping me out as a young trainer, and then the other young coaches that are listening to this podcast, and even for the parents or whoever else is listening. I feel like a lot of the stuff we talked about is so applicable in different disciplines.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you dropped some nuggets too, so I'll be rewatching this and probably implementing some of the stuff that you said into my life and our business with Fast Phenom. So thank you, Coach. I appreciate you having me on here. It's been fun, and we'll do this again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.